One of the highlights of my career life was spending about 5 years in England and in Scotland as a Christian Servicemen Center director for our denomination. I worked with Navy personnel and their families in Scotland for a few months, and then I went to England and worked with Air Force personnel and their families for about 4.5 years. And I had a blast. It was an absolute blast, and I learned so much about religions outside of my own, Christian faiths outside of my own. Because one of the things that I decided to do when I went there was I did not want this to be a transplanted church from the southeastern United States that was just people from my denomination. That was boring to me. And as a result, in our church, we had Pentecostals, we had Methodists, Lutherans, we had a few Catholics that attended, just because they were friends of mine, I suppose, and several other denominations represented as well. And we really coalesced into a wonderful family that respected one another, respected our differences, looked a lot more to our common themes. It was 5 years of career bliss. It wasn't the easiest 5 years I've ever spent, but it was 5 years of career bliss. And my job primarily was working with the families through the week, arranging social time, arranging tours to places or whatever we might do. Trying to spend time in that regard, for instance, with the Navy people in Scotland. Every Thursday night we cooked dinner for whoever wanted to show up, so it wasn't unusual to cook dinner for 20 people, 25 people. And then another night it was fish and chips night. We didn't cook, and anybody that wanted to go down and buy their own fish and chips and bring it back, we could do that. It was just a great time. As far as serving as a pastor of sorts in that, my primary function was to preach at least once on a Sunday. And that was typically a Sunday evening, because one of the things that we did was we attended the military chapel services in the morning. And I like that. I liked that process of studying, of putting my thoughts down, of trying to get something that made sense, and then being able to stand and deliver whatever it was that I was trying to get across. One of the things that I failed at most often, and I'm just being honest, was the same thing that I failed at when I started teaching after I came back to the United States. It was something that inherently, for me at least, it was just difficult to get down and get it done. And that was to bring the thing to a close. I mean, I ended on time. Most of my sermons were about 20 or 25 minutes. Sometimes they went 30 minutes. I wasn't one of those hour-long preachers. Tried not to be. But as much as I honed the introduction and the middle, getting people to do something at the end, to get them to commit to something, was a difficult thing for me. And I found that it was just as difficult in the classroom, that I had a hard time. I had sometimes really what I figured to be great warm-ups for kids. We had some really interesting sort of activities to do. I was an English teacher, so activities were kind of few and far between in some areas, but we found ways to sort of make the classroom fun at times. But then getting to the end and getting them to utilize what we had just been over in a way that I could assess it, I really had a hard time with that. And you say, well, Tim, why are you telling me all that? Well, because of two things. One is, as teachers plan their lessons, they need to plan the end of their lesson as the most important piece. Because it is at the end of the lesson that the students show you what they know and what they don't. And if you have failed to bring your lesson to a bona fide ending, if you've gone too long in the middle, or if you just didn't plan how to end the lesson properly, then the students don't give you the opportunity to demonstrate what they know. And the second problem with that is they don't get the benefit of the feedback from you that they so desperately need. Now, I'm not talking about grades. I'm not talking about getting a paper back and seeing a 98 on it, or a smiley face drawn next to a 94. I'm talking about honest to goodness feedback that helps a child understand not only what they did right, but where they need to improve. So I guess I'm saying this to our teachers this week, and that is, don't be me. Just don't be me. Plan the ending as a just important piece as getting students started at the beginning. And then work your way through to make sure you've left enough time to get to that place at the end where students have an adequate time to demonstrate to you what they learned. We'll see you next week.